So this is the step-by-step guide of how to be an attorney in California, and I'm going to try to speed through this so I'm not wasting too much of your time. But it starts a little bit early. In high school, in that time frame, you want to get a decent GPA because it matters which undergrad you go to. Now that doesn't matter as much as the GPA that you're going to get at that undergrad, but the better school you go to in the very beginning, the better chances you're going to have later on. If you don't go to like a ranked school or anything like that, like I went to Cal State Northridge, which is a great college, but a very low ranked college, that's fine. If that's the case, then you need to come out with a high GPA. So starting from the beginning, if you're young enough to where you have these ambitions in high school and you're moving up, so good GPA. Now, let's say you're in college now, you're at a great school. Basically, you just need to get out with the degree, and then you're going to be focusing on your LSAT. But let's say you don't go to a great school, you went to Cal State Northridge like I did, or you were in the Marine Corps like I was, you're fresh out of the military and you're trying to figure out something like that. So if that's the direction your path went, GPA is the current focus from freshman year at university forward. Now, you don't need to be perfect. To get into a decent law school, though, you need to be looking at a 3.4 or above. And law schools, remember this, law schools take two things into consideration in their admissions, and that's your LSAT score and your GPA. So law school rankings are based on those two factors. What's your LSAT score and what was your GPA going into that law school? Now, some law schools aren't accepting the LSAT, or it's not that they're not accepting it, but it's not a requirement that you produce the LSAT in your application. But you know, that's something that's going to show that you're competitive if you have a high LSAT. So first thing you want to do is you want to get a good GPA out of undergrad. Hopefully you went to a good school. If you didn't, then you need that 3.5, 3.6, or even higher to go to a school. So in law school, I went to a good ranking school. I didn't go to the best school. I went to Pepperdine Law School. I think it's the best because I had a really good time there. Life just happened to work out really well for me. And pretty much everybody I went to school with, they're like, anything from like $1 million PI attorneys to like famous TikTokers to whatever. Like Pepperdine was just cranking out a lot of talent. So I wouldn't be too worried about going to a top 14 law school, but you want to go to a good one. And so GPA, LSAT. Now for your LSAT, as you're applying to a good law school, the higher your GPA is, the worse you can do on the LSAT for the most part and still get into those target schools. The weaker your GPA is, the higher that LSAT needs to be. Realistically, you need a 160 on the LSAT or higher to get into any decent school, to include Pepperdine. Yes, they take students that get a score slightly lower than a 160 on the LSAT. This isn't something that I would risk. You need to be studying for the LSAT beginning your junior year at university and take that LSAT once or twice during your senior year to get the scores in time. And we're targeting 160. Now, if you're trying to go to a T14, you're targeting 170. And if you understand how the scoring system works, I think it's like from 130 to 180. And once you get to 160, we're talking like top 10%. Once you get to 170 and above, we're talking about brackets within the top 1%. So obviously score as high as you can. If you can get to 179, 180, do that. But realistically, you want to get above 160 if you want to go to a decent school. And here's why going to a decent law school matters. Job opportunities out of the gate. Now, that doesn't, everybody has this kind of assumption that when I go to law school, I'm guaranteed a good salary. And the reality is most people who graduate law school across all law schools are going to end up with a salary of about 50 to 80,000. They'll meet that exempt salary threshold in California. That's about 80,000. It's not the highest paying job if you went to a trash school and you got trash results. A lot of these law firms, the ones that you hear about where you're making 250 plus out of the gate, you have to go to a good school. I mean, even at Pepperdine, which at the time when I went, I think we ended with a ranking in like the high 40s, low 50s of all law schools, which is phenomenal considering there's like 250 law schools. But even then, if you wanted to go to one of these law firms that were going to pay you $250,000 out of the gate, you had to graduate from Pepperdine like top 10. You had to be like a top 5 player in the game to do that. Um, Whereas if you were to go to one of these T14 schools, I mean, graduating from the school itself is the prestige. There's not an expectation that you're number one in the class because there's only one number one in the class. Some of these big firms, they need to hire 150, 200 attorneys each year to match the turnover and retirement that they have on the back end. So in order to do that, um, for like schools from 25 through 75, maybe 25 through 50, you'll get like the top 10, top 15 uh, students that have graduated in terms of placement. And for like 50 to 75, you get like top 1 to 5. And then if you're in like a top 25 school, it's definitely a T14. You're getting one of those jobs if you really want one. So coming back to it, you want to be a lawyer. You need a decent GPA, decent LSAT to get into a good school. To get into a good law school, that's going to increase your chances of getting the good job as an attorney that you want. While you're in law school, there's certain things that professors and schools kind of push onto you, but it doesn't really matter. They don't actually affect the outcome of you becoming an attorney at a good law firm, and that's law clerks. There's something that you'll learn about in law school is that you can work for a judge kind of as a judge's assistant, drafting memorandum and helping them come to the decisions, because the judge isn't sitting there reading everybody's motions and researching the issues. They have clerks that do that. It looks really good on the law school itself to have people who are doing that, but as for you becoming an attorney, it's not going to help you. It's going to do nothing for you, like literally nothing. You're just going to not make as much money. Some of these big law firms will actually match your salary while you're doing that. It's a waste of time. It's a complete waste of time. I wouldn't recommend doing that. Same with law review and some of these things in law school that like they used to matter back in the day in like the 80s and 90s. These were something that could get you into one of these big firms. The publications really mattered. Now it doesn't. It's a waste of your time. It's an absolute waste of your time. You need work experience. You need to make sure instead of doing law review and law clerkships, you're actually doing your intern and externships at the law firm in the summers. That's the most valuable use of your time. So while you're in law school, that's what you're going to focus on. You're going to focus on first, if getting into a good school, if you got into a school ranked between 25 and 75, you need to boost your rankings. So you need to be studying, you need to be getting good grades. Now, lastly, as it relates to California, you've done all these things, good placement, the bar exam. You are going to get so much prep if you go to an ABA accredited law school for the bar exam. You look at the stats online and it's like 33% of people pass the first try. But if you dig into those stats and you went to a decent school like Pepperdine or something like that, like 88 to 95% of kids are passing on their first try if you graduated from that school. So this is incorporating everybody who graduated from every law school across the country who is then taking the California bar exam. That's the rate that they're passing at. You went to a decent school, you're a decent person in terms of IQ or your study habits, you're passing the test on the first try. So I wouldn't focus too much on any of that other nonsense. Once you take the bar exam, you're going to be taking a prep course, be it Barbary or Themis, or there's some other ones, Fort Bar Test Prep or something like that. Somebody in my law school invented that. As if they each come with like a schedule. Like I took Themis Bar Prep and it tells you, it says, when are you going to start studying? When is the bar exam? It's like 12, 13 weeks out. And then it created like a day-to-day schedule. This is everything that you should do every single day. And I did exactly that and nothing else. I did exactly what it said, which is a lot. And it's funny because at the end of it, it's like you completed 100% of your bar prep program. And then it says on average, people complete 60% or 70%. So it's like, it's literally telling you what to do that day. And more often than not, people just never do it all, you know? So apparently they only complete 70% of the program by the end of it, if that's what it's saying the averages are. And so that's how it works. Now, in terms of getting a job at a law firm, they will find you. You will find them. They will find you. LinkedIn is your friend. I hate LinkedIn. I think it's such a ridiculous social media site. LinkedIn is your friend. Your school, if you went to a decent law school, they're going to have programs and systems set up, or law firms are going to come to the school to find you. So again, wouldn't worry too much about, am I going to be able to get a job? If you scored high enough, if you ranked high enough, again, they will find you. They want you working at their law firm. If you're like me and you ranked in the middle of the class, you're still going to find a job, because there's 1.5 million jobs for attorneys. And just because you didn't make it to that big law out of law school, out of the gate, I was hired by Big Law about 1.5 years afterwards. So it took me about 1.5 years at a medium firm of doing good shit, doing good work, gathering experience that you can't even get at a big law firm, because everybody has their role. If you're on doc review, you're on doc review for a little bit, you're going to move up. It's not really as stringent as that. They give you more than that. Like you're just doing the bitch work, but you don't really appear for the hearings and stuff. But if you end up at a small and medium-sized firm, you'll be shocked. They'll have you do everything out of the gate. You might be tied to a partner, and that partner's going to trial next week, and he's like, guess what you're doing? You're going to trial next week. And then you're a 3-week attorney with trial experience. So don't sleep on the small to mid-sized firms, and they will propel you into a large law firm. And don't get obsessed with the big law firm dream like I was. You get in there, 6 months later, I'm like, oh, there's a reason they pay you this much. You're working your ass to death. I'm talking like a serious, like 80, 90 hour week. Like, it's no fucking joke. I hated it so much. I rage quit, started a law firm as like a resume placeholder while I looked for another job. That's Miller Wilmer's APC. We've been around 4 years now. We've serviced hundreds, maybe 1,000 clients at this point. So that's all part of your hero's journey, but that's how you become an attorney in California.